Zach Greinke still at the top of the rankings here with Yoenis Cespedes and Ryan Zimmerman after. Then Hunter Pence and Anibal Sanchez. Billy Hamilton ranked pretty high on Yahoo, and he can outright win the stolen base category for you. Whether or not that's something you need him to do, and whether or not you can take the risk involved with him associated with batting average, RBI, and home runs, that's a whole different discussion. Excuse me. Steve brings up a great point about Koji Uehara. He says that he's 87 years old. And while I think all statistics spouted on this stream are rough estimates, he is an old man. Okay, so after Kenley Jansen was taken, then went Adrian Gonzalez, Starling Marte, Buster Posey, Joe Mauer, and Anibal Sanchez. And at LPZ15 says Marte couldn't fall any further, and I'm inclined to agree. That is a pretty sweet value. I mean, I'm sure he'll regress a little bit from what he did last year, particularly at batting average, because he had I think, if I remember correctly, he had an insane BABIP last year, like completely unsustainable. But he's still a young player. He's going to get better in theory, so nothing wrong with him there. A few more picks before I come up still. All these guys taking this mock drafting so seriously. Jeez. Zach says he's torn here. He feels like he's going to miss the guy he wants, but he doesn't think he can take him here, so he just took Cespedes. It'll be interesting to see who the guy he wanted actually was. I'm curious to find out. I'm going to start looking specifically at batters, because I want to look at some of the stats that come along with the players here. And I kind of wish there was a news and notes thing that they did on Yahoo, but they do not. So make sure if you're drafting with something on the line that you keep up to date with the news and events going on around spring training. The Fake Baseball is a great place to do that, but there are a lot of other resources you can use, Twitter being a huge one. I recommend you follow, if not some, all of our writers on, or I should say some, if not all, is probably a better way to express that, of our writers on Twitter, because even if they're not, breaking news, they're going to retweet stories and articles that'll give you a good insight into which players are moving up and down in value based upon what's going on in spring training, injury news, stuff like that. Okay, our pick is gradually approaching here. And let's take a look again at the pitchers available. Garrett Cole, top of the Yahoo rankings. And it's pretty crazy for a second-year guy to be ranked ahead of some of these proven commodities, but in Cole's case, can you really argue? I mean, he started off pretty good, and then he only got better as he adjusted to the big leagues after his call-up last season. Again, I'm going to check in on Jason picking between my two picks here to see what he has on his roster. He has Prince Fielder, Robinson Cano, Alan Craig, Shin-Soo Choo, Felix Hernandez, and Justin Verlander. I don't want to say it's safe to assume he won't take another starter, but I would imagine he's probably going to start taking hitters with these two picks in the end of the 7th, beginning of the 8th round. So if I only want one pitcher here, and I think I can sneak him by, Jason, I might take an offensive player in the hopes that he doesn't get snagged by this person here, Jason on the wheel. Whoa, Matt Kemp was just selected right after Hunter Pence. How the mighty have fallen. After Cespedes, just to catch up on the other picks, Trevor Rosenthal, Zach Greinke, Matt Cain, Hunter Pence, and Kemp were selected. It's a pretty big fall for Kemp considering his first-round status past 1 or 2 years. Let's see. What am I going to do here? That's the real question. I do need a second baseman or a third baseman, so let's look at the second baseman available. None of these guys are really jumping out at me. Third base. Yeah, I mean, I like plenty of these guys, but at the same time, I think I can wait a little while longer. Outfielders. Yeah, no one's really calling my name. This is always a tough spot to be in a draft, and I think if anything, I just need to take a pitcher here because that's what my team needs. I have my offense hopefully pretty well squared away at this point, and let's see, who do I have at the top of my pitcher rankings? I have a feeling it's Cole. It is. I like him just as much as Yahoo does, apparently. So I'll select him here. See what happens with these 2 picks before I come back up. But I will be considering another hitter here. Possibly... Let's see, who do we have available? We're diving down deeper into my personal ranks here. Jason Hayward, Mark Trumbo, Jose Abreu, Jose Altuve, Josh Hamilton, super risky. Michael Kadire, Anthony Rizzo sneaking up. It's interesting to kind of tango with your own personal rankings plus the automated draft rankings here as well. Specifically, we should probably look at third base here. Ryan Zimmerman and Josh Donaldson are guys that I can consider in this spot. So let's look at them and what they did last year. Oh, I just missed out on Jordan Zimmerman. Oh, and I think Ryan Zimmerman was drafted. Yeah, he was. So I got mixed up there. So, I mean, Donaldson's a guy I could consider in this spot. An MVP candidate last year in real baseball. It'll be interesting to see how he does again this year in fantasy. But I mean, the numbers were there. 89 runs, 24 homers, 93 RBI, 5 steals, a 301 average. I would prefer a line like that to something like what Pedro Alvarez did with 36 home runs, 100 RBI, but a 233 average. With that said, further down the ranks, Brett Lawrie, Kyle Seager, these guys can all get value as well. It's important to kind of not get caught up in, overvaluing all of your value picks because you're probably not going to get all of them. And just at some point, you have to just take the guys that are towards the top of your rankings. And with me, I think that actually is just not Zimmerman, but Donaldson. So he's the guy I'm going to take here. And we'll see how it goes. This is definitely an interesting draft for me. I haven't had a team come together quite like this yet. This preseason, I don't think I've drafted Josh Donaldson or Hanley Ramirez on any teams, even in my mock drafts, and to have them both on the same team, I guess kind of speaks to the way I do draft typically, which is taking Evan Longoria in the second round, as opposed to one where I take Hanley Ramirez and Bryce Harper. So yeah, that's just a little food for thought. After Jordan Zimmerman, before my Donaldson pick, Trumbo went in. So there's discussion going on in the chat here about Trumbo, and people bringing up a lot of good points. Big power, hitting behind Goldschmidt. Yeah. After my pick of Donaldson, Greg Holland was selected, so that is pretty much all of the elite closers. At this point, you're just looking at solid guys. Yohara, Joe Nathan, Sergio Romo, Glenn Perkins, Grilled Cheese, Jason Grilli, Rafael Soriano. Yeah. A lot of kind of middling options. And it's really hard to say which ones are going to be the best at the end of the season. So I don't think you really need to prioritize one or the other. You just kind of don't want to be left out in the cold with none of them. So that's another position I could start to look at when the picks come back to me next round. Zach Arbison says he hates his Posey pick, seeing that Molina is still there. And yeah, that's exactly the sentiment I was trying to get across earlier with taking Posey early. I mean, he delivers stats that merit that draft position, but relative to the value you get on the other catchers, he's just not worth it. And it's sad because he's a great player, and he's probably not worth as much as he should be in fantasy baseball compared to like what he does for the Giants in real baseball. It's definitely how do I want to put this? It's definitely a nod to say that 2 catcher leagues might be the way to go if you want to make catchers more valuable and really reward a player like Posey for the numbers he puts up. Anyway, who else is being drafted here? After Holland went Jason Hayward and Carlos Santana. I'm going to check in on the stream chat. Still just Steve. Steve says he was hoping that Donaldson fell to him. He wanted him at third base. So maybe I'm getting something right. How about that? Sorry, Steve. Here's where we find out if the guy that Zach Jacobson wanted comes back to him. Did he come back? So I think I mentioned the Hayward and Santana picks. Josh Hamilton was taken. Not sure if I mentioned that one or not. Third baseman kind of occupying a lot of these top Yahoo rated spots. Manny Machado, Pedro Alvarez, Pablo Sandoval. Some other corner infielders as well. Billy Butler's up here. Brett Laurie coming up the ranks. Oh, this are just batters. I guess I should look at the overall to see where the pitchers slot in. So yeah, still a lot of pitchers. Gio Gonzalez, Homer Bailey, Matt Latos, Cole Hamels. I'm going to check in on Cole Hamels' injury status because he's a guy that I typically like from year to year in fantasy baseball, but it sounds like he is not healthy. And it says he threw a bullpen session on Saturday, hopes to throw live batting practice sometime next week. Quote-unquote, everything felt really good. I mean, would you expect him to say any less? I'm not sure. He says, my pitches are really coming along. I'm able to execute, blah, 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 blah. Cliche. Shoulder tendonitis early in the spring. Yeah, shoulder problems, man. That is terrifying. I mean, you never know. He could be just fine, but is he a guy you want to spend an 8th, 9th round pick on when you could have someone like Homer Bailey, like Matt Latos? I'm not sure. It might just be worth it to let him slide and see if you can get him even later and really try to get some value out of that pick. Although he was just selected after Hamilton went Beltran, then Hamels. Steve says, I love when Greg starts talking about someone and they immediately get drafted. I'm not sure if that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Ben Zobrist was just taken. So, yeah, I mean, the fact that I'm talking about these guys while we're drafting together, come at me, guys. Does that influence your picks? I'm not necessarily throwing these names out there because I really want them at any position in the draft. I tend to be pretty fluid with my rankings and my team needs, but at the same time, like, there's some amount of head games you can play, especially if you're drafting in a room with your buddies as opposed to online with a chat room going on. Table talk, if you will. So, yeah, some people frown upon that. I don't think it's wrong. I think that, I mean, you should do whatever you can to try and influence people to make the picks you want them to make. Not that that's what I'm trying to do here. I think that's an interesting kind of zone in the fantasy universe, that those politics and etiquette kind of rules that people will spout at you, like, don't talk about a guy before he's been drafted. And it's like, you know, why not? That doesn't bother me. Okay. Richard says Hamels may miss April because of the shoulder problem. Yeah, that is terrifying. Because, I mean, you miss April, like, who's to say you're not going to miss more than that? Okay, back to the overall rankings here. A few more picks before we come up. Let's see. After Hamels and Zobrist were Billy Hamilton. And then Yadier Molina.